It's such a privilege to be able to sit with you on this remarkable evening of Yat Kislev, the 19th day of Kislev, which is a mysterious day. Outside of Lubavitch, it's not necessarily a day that's so specified and celebrated in particular. But in Chabad, and more increasingly over the years, as it's gained in popularity and it's become even beyond the banks of that particular Hasidus, it's become a day that's experienced by many different groups as a day that has something to do, exactly what it is, I'll try to speak about it a little bit now. A day on which the light of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the revelation of Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem, is shining with particular clarity, particular luminosity and brilliance. So I want to discuss just now a little bit, maybe the music we could make just a little bit louder. I want to talk just a little bit, Siyata D'Shmai, with Hashem's help, about this day, and to try to crack open just one angle of millions of facets and different aspects of what Yat Kislev is, by trying to analyze the story. The story that the day marks, in addition to, of course, outside, together with the yard side of the Magad HaGadol of Mezrich, Zchusi Yagon Aleinu, Heilchal Yisrael Amin, whose yard side is today as well. Generally, Yat Kislev is known as the day that the Baal HaTanya, Zchusi Yagon Aleinu, was redeemed from prison. With the words, Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, my soul was redeemed in wholeness, in oneness, in peace. Those words in Tehillim that he was just happened to be, obviously, Min HaShamayim, up to, and all of a sudden the guard came and told him that he was free. What is that story? What was that? How did the Baal HaTanya end up in prison? What were the charges? What did he experience while he was there? And what does all of this have to tell us about what this day has become for Lubavitcher Hasidim and for Yidden all around the world who find their neshamas illuminated by the light of this thing called Hasidus? So the whole story began, really, without getting to prati pratim, but generally, the story began with the unfortunate episode of Rabbi Leo of Vilna, Zchusi Yagon Aleinu, the Vilna Gaon, who took it upon himself to serve as the foil to this great light that was coming down to the world. Obviously, Machlokes Shebein HaTzadikim and involved in. So Rabbi Nachman told us so clearly, mysteries upon mysteries of the Anhaga of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way that he unfolds revelations in the world. But the Vilna Gaon served as the opposition to the light that was being revealed by the Baal Shem HaKadosh and by his student, the Maggid Mizrich, and by the Maggid students, most notably the Baal Tanya, who operated within the vicinity, and a tremendous amount of residents of Vilna found themselves drawing closer and closer to the light of the Baal Tanya. And because of that posture, there was a tremendous degree of suffering on the part of the Hasidim, who were maligned and persecuted and cut off and excommunicated. And when it happened on Chol Hamoed Sukkos that the Vilna Gaon's neshama left his body and went to the upper worlds, there was either real or imagined undue celebration on the part of Lubavitcher Hasidim in particular. And I say real or imagined because it's unclear, to what degree what they were charged with was actually true. It's possible that just going out of their minds with grief. The students of Rav Leo, also interestingly called the Chassid in Vilna, just assumed, as part of their grieving process, that it must be, that their arch enemies, the Lubavitcher Hasidim, must be celebrated, because what else could they do? And this real or imagined celebration led them to take the drastic action of deciding to maser, to report the Baal Tanya to the government officials. And there were a number of charges in the charges brought against the Baal Tanya. One of them was that he was starting a new religion. Another was that he was embezzling the funds that were being entrusted in him. But one of the primary charges that was brought against the Baal Tanya was that he was sending money to Eretz Yisrael. At that time, the governments, the kingdoms of those two realms, Russia and then Ottoman Empire and Eretz Yisrael, were incredibly suspicious of one another, hostile to one another. And sending funds abroad to that region was seen as the highest form of treason. And this was in fact the case. The Baal Tanya was in charge of the funds that were collected from all of the Yidden who lived in those locales and vicinities, and he was in charge of making sure that they were sent to support the fledgling communities of the first Yishuv, Rav Mendel Vitebsker in Tveria, and the Bas Ayin, and those who had emigrated to Eretz Yisrael were building Yiddishkeit there. And that was true. So obviously on a day of Pnimius, on a day when the Baal Tanya was redeemed, and it became clear to him and it became clear to his Hasidim that a new era had dawned on this inyan of the revelation of Hasidus, the revelation of the Baal Shem Tov's light, which was later codified and was known, at least in Chabad, as the Torah B'Ksav of Hasidus, the Sefer Tanya, which is 53 prakim, connected the 53 days that the Baal Tanya was held in Petersburg, in that dark prison. So obviously there's tremendous depth in every aspect of this story. There's nothing that's by chance. So I want to think for a second together about what this is. Sending funds to Eretz Yisrael. What's the impact? If you think about it, B'Pnimius, it's the most absurd thing in the world that a Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael should be supported by funds from Chul, by funds from Chutz La'aretz. It's absurd. The Gemara in Taanis tells us Eretz Yisrael Shoyset Chil, Eretz Yisrael is Gavoy Mikol Ha'aratzos. Eretz Yisrael is the Makar At the center of Eretz Yisrael is Yerushalayim, the center of Yerushalayim is the Har HaBayis, so the center of Har HaBayis is the Evan Shesiyah, Shemimenu Hushas HaOlam. The whole world is full of light and energy and vitality as a result of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is the neshama. All of the other lands is the guf. I'm not going to say which part of the guf, I think London is, but all the different parts of the world are different parts of the guf. Eretz Yisrael is mamish. It's the neshama. How could it be that the guf supports the neshama? L'chayr is the opposite way around. You understand that the challenge of the opponents to Hasidus wasn't simply a technicality. They found this Indian where they could go and master the Balatanya, and they found some Indian, to say, oh, he's sending money, and so with this we could convince the government that he's a traitor. It's much deeper. Because before the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, there was light and vessels, there was Or and Kalim, there was spirituality and there was physicality. And the light was light and the vessels was vessels. The Heilchal HaBesht in his Sefer farbrengen writes extremely clearly and explicitly that the revelation of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh was that not only do the Kalim hold are the vessels of physicality a vestibule, a kli for spiritual light, but the revelation of the Baal Shem Tov was that actually the vessels are themselves light. There is no kodesh and chol. There's kodesh in the form of transcendent kedusha, and there's kedusha in the form of gashmias. There is only light. There's only or. And on the contrary, and this was a radical shift in theology, the Baal Shem Tov and the Hasidim put forth the idea that actually in a certain bechina, in a certain sense, the Or that's revealed within the Kalim is an even higher form of Or than the Or that's mufshat, that's free from its enclothement within the physical realm. That the Indian of Dir B'Tachtoinim means that when we're able to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu dafka in Avodah B'Gashmias, Neshamas in Gufim, in the Indian of the place of Hester, Adarabba, in some sense the Kalim are more Or than Or. In the words of the Balei Yortzeit, the Maggid Mizrich, in his phenomenal Sefer Ar Torah, the Tzaddik writes very fundamentally in Parshas Va'era, Ki b'chol davar v'davar sheb'chol ha'olamos. In every single thing in all of the worlds, mukhrich liyos hatoiv. There's got to be goodness in there, shuvah chesed, which is love. Mu'urav behem. There's always chesed mixed in with everything. Ki oilam chesed yibana, oilam elashan ha'elam. The physical world was created out of love and to reveal love. V'yashu din. Even though there's a thing called judgment, severity, physicality, vessels, that which seems to conceal the spiritual light of Hashem. Mikol makoim, as the Baal Shem Tov reminds us millions of times, this is the essence of Chasidus, Meloshen Chesed. This is the essence of what the Baal Shem Tov was. There was millions of Balei Shem. He was the Baal Shem Tov. Reminds us that in Loy Hayot Tzimtzum, if there wouldn't have been this self-kiviyachol concealment, limitation, revelation of Gevura, nothing could exist. There would be no me, there would be no you, there would be no light, not in Gashmias and not in Ruchnias. There would be nothing. V'yadua ki midas hadin nikra elikim. We know that the Shem Elikim is the midas hadin. But he says you cannot read the Shem Elikim without reading first the word kel. Ubesaycha mu'ur v'chesed shu Shem kel shebesaychai. Like the pasuk says, Chesed Kel Kol Hayoim, and that's the first two letters of the Shem of Din, which is Elikim, is the Shem Kel, which is Chesed Kel Kol Hayoim, which is kindness. In other words, there's light that's light, and that's spirituality, and that's Or, and that's Chesed, and that's Ba'ar Pnei Melachayim Panim B'Panim. But what enables us to feel that light is an even deeper form of light, which is what makes place for that light to settle, to exist, to be able to be experienced. That's what sustains the light. That's the wick that enables the flame to burn so beautifully and brightly. Sending funds from Chutz La'aretz to support Eretz Yisrael is inconceivable theologically from the standpoint of making a mighty distinction between light and vessel, between Ruchnius and Gashmius. When Chol is Chol and Kodesh is Kodesh, I don't want to hear about any kind of support or funds that are traveling from the direction of the guf into the direction of the neshama. But wasn't this the whole inyan of Chasidus? This was the whole avodah. Chasidus is a revelation of the Or of the Geula. When Chazal tell us the Or of Yerushalayim will be mispashet over the whole Eretz Yisrael, the Or of Eretz Yisrael will be mispashet over all of the globe, isn't just a comment about geography. It's a comment about every single aspect of Eretz Yisrael and every single aspect of Chutz La'aretz, and the ability for a Jew to realize that wherever a person finds themselves, whether in a moichin de Eretz Yisrael, in a consciousness of Eretz Yisrael, which is a time of aliyah, what Rabbi Nachman would call baki beratzai, a time of elevation, of success, of growth, or whether a Jew finds himself in the aspect of chal, in the aspect of chutz la'aretz, chal, in the aspect of yurida, the light of Eretz Yisrael can be found there. We were just learning this week with the Chevra and Lakutei Moharan Torah Lamed Gimel. The Rebbe quotes a pasuk from Kehelas that says, "B'yom tov hayeh b'tov." On a good day, enjoy the good. V'yom ra, and on a bad day, the pasuk says re'eh. So Pashup Shat means re'eh means reflect, and the Mefarshim say, because if a person's having a bad day, so obviously it's a message. Person has to reflect. What's Hashem trying to tell me? What do I need to fix? What do we need to rectify? What's going on in my life? But Rabbi Nachman channeling the light of the Baal Shem HaKadosh, the Rebbe says no, that's not what the word re'eh means. B'yoyim toiv heye b'toiv, on a good day enjoy the goodness. U'b'yoyim ra, says the Rebbe, on a bad day kiviyachol re'eh, which means to say reflect deeply on the Yemei Ra, says the Rebbe. Bevada, you'll find the Yemei Toiv behind the veil of the Yemei Ra. B'yoyim ra re'eh, just look deeper. Yeah, it looks like a kli on the outside. It looks like tzimtzum. It looks like gvura. It looks like shem alikim. Look a little bit deeper. Look beyond the hey yud mem part of alikim and find the shem kel. It's deep. It's deep in there. Find the opening of the words. Roish devarcha emes. Pesach dvarecha yair. Find the opening. Find the makar. Where does this din come from? Ki gavar aleinu chazdoi. The gevura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all aspects. The mundanity that we experience, the frustrations, the difficulties, the annoying things that get in the way of what we perceive to be our closeness with Hashem, the aspect of Kalim that we don't feel what we desire to feel, what we're yearning to feel. The aspect of Chutz La'aretz in every single way, and I bless you and me that we should make it back to Eretz Yisrael speedily, Be'ezus Hashem. But all the while that a person finds themselves in a Bechin of Chutz La'aretz, Bein Begashmias, Bein Beruchnias, Bein B'mayach, Bein B'leiv, the Arab Hasidah says, not only isn't this a b'diavad, in some crazy paradoxical way, Chutz La'aretz is sending funds to support Eretz Yisrael. The moments of Gashmias, those moments where we're tested, those moments that don't feel full of light, full of ar, that's creating space. That's creating space for the flame to be able to be kindled and to flicker and to grow and to jump and to rise. Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. And in this sense, like Rabbi Nachman writes, unlike you find a common expression in the words of the Sfarim HaKadoshim, and I apologize if you've heard this from me in the past, it's just Chazara, we need to review these things every day. But in the other Sfarim HaKadoshim, you find the lashon of Yerida l'tzorech aliyah, where it can be understood that a Yerida is nebuch. A person had a Yerida, but then l'tzorech aliyah, meaning there's some kind of redemptive element in the sense that it builds up cheshek, that it enables a person to strengthens their resolve, like the Baal Tanya writes in Tanya, that's the inyan of Esdoinas nepchulus chuyas, where a person's averis can themselves become mitzvahs in the sense that they are what caused a person to feel so distant that they have a bechina of tzam l'chanafshi kam l'chavasari and a bechina of rishpei shaleves ka, that they feel this yearning. But in the Likutei Moharan, Rabbi Nachman Tzchusi Agaleinu writes a different lashon. He says there isn't just a thing called Yerida l'tzorech aliyah. There's a brand new revelation. Reb Tzadok HaKohen makes reference to this in Sigas Tzaddik. We learned with some of the Chevra a few weeks ago. Yerida hu tachlis ha'aliyah. To translate, the moment of descent is in some sense the pinnacle of the ascent. Now this is a total pella. What are you talking about? Maybe you want to tell me that the floor is on the bottom and the ceiling is the ceiling. Okay, I get it. Sometimes you have to sort of crouch down on the floor and then you can spring toward the ceiling, right? That's Yerida l'tzorech aliyah. Here Rabbi Nachman comes and he flips the whole thing and he says, no, actually, the aliyah is great, but it's the floor. But the Yerida is the tachlis of the aliyah. It's not a stage that comes prior to the aliyah. It is the stage which succeeds the experience of aliyah as a testing ground to find out how real was it. It's the moment of gevura and kli and chutz la'aretz and yerida and chal that comes after a great moment of spiritual revelation that tests the veracity, the integrity of the aliyah that we felt, because it's so easy to come into Heilchal HaBesht and Yat Kislev and mamish sing the B'ditcher and have some l'chaims. It's great. This is a hachana. This is a hachana for life. Because when we go out of here and somebody cuts us off on the street, right, on the road, and something frustrating happens, and we get home and things are not the way that we want, the Yerida, Kiviyachol, is the tachlis of the aliyah. In other words, also what we're learning in the morning in Likutei Moharan with the Chevra, the Rebbe says that Rachmana Liba Boy doesn't just mean that Hashem wants that when we're serving Hashem we should be with our heart full of light and full of feeling and full of joy and full of connection. That's of course also true. Rabbi Nachman says, you know what the leiv means? Leiv means, can you walk the walk and not just talk the talk? Meaning, can you have the v'yadata hayoyim, but can you bring it down? He says that's what the Gemara means when Hashem says Rachmana Liba Boy. Hashem doesn't want big fancy speeches. Hashem wants the avoida. He wants the real thing. can we actually put it into practice? We have the car, but can we drive it? Rabbi Nachman, Torah Lamed Gimel. This is sending funds to Eretz Yisrael. It's the moment of chul. It's the inyan of Gashmiyas. It's the inyan of that inyan of Yerida and chutz la'aretz. The Baal Shem Tov says that's where the light is. Like, that's the real R. The real R is not in great accomplishments. The real R is in a little bit of Shivron Leiv. Another thing that we learned, this is from the Dago Machane Ephraim. But the Dago wants to know, Shemi just reminded me of it the other day, the Dago wants to know, what does it mean a Leiv Toiv? The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says Leiv Toiv is the best thing you can have. It included all the other, the Ayin Toiv and Shachin Toiv and so on. Leiv Toiv is the most important thing. Says the Dago, what's a Leiv Toiv? What does that mean? We know how to describe like good kugel, and we can explain what it means. It was peppery, it was crispy, it was soft inside. Everybody knows what good kugel is, right? I hope we can agree on good kugel. Yeah, good kugel, everybody knows what it means. Good wine, okay, different opinion. But like we know what a good. So he says, okay, what's a leiv tov? What's a good heart? Says the Degel, a good heart is a broken heart. That's a leiv tov. Writes this explicitly. He says, leiv tov is shivron leiv. That's a good heart. A good leiv is a shivron leiv. And the Baal Shem Tov came to say, that's what Hashem wants. It's the avodah begashmos. That's this whole inyan of galus. That's this whole inyan of where we find ourselves today. So from the standpoint of the Memshala, of the government, what really did they perceive to be the issue of sending money to Eretz Yisrael? It's the same thing that we're facing today, which is, what is a Jew? What is this strange thing of a Jew who lives in Russia and is sending funds to a different like they can't grasp it. Like what, and that's the way that they took it. I don't think they were trying to be antagonistic. It looked like it was supporting the enemy. Because like, what? How can you, like, where do you live? What are you a part of? What? And they can't figure this thing out. And they're boycotting AIPAC, the states, which is like a fund that, lobby to support Israel, because they, what is this thing called a Jew? Where is their allegiance from the standpoint of the country that they affiliate with, that they identify with? And of course the answer is something that I don't think they can grasp quite yet. Because we're not in any regular category. Our allegiance to Eretz Yisrael is not allegiance to a state, whether there is a state or isn't a state, that's not that included for 2,000 years. And our identity as a people is not bound up with a particular sense of nationhood, sovereignty, power. It's so distant from the common prevailing categories of national identity that it's just impossible to try to describe to people. What are we? We're in exile. We're scattered around. We're scattered around Gullus. And we're scattered around Gullus because our nation is on a mission. Chazal say Klal Yisrael was only sent into exile to add on Gerim. And of course we don't go out to try to make Gerim. The Ariyah Kodesh explains it's a reference to the Nitzitzis to Kedusha that are scattered throughout the whole world, that as Klal Yisrael continue on their journey, and we try our best to be shomer Torah and mitzvahs, when we make brachas on the food that we eat, and we're able to make a living honestly, and we're able to send our children to school properly, and we're able to live. So there are sparks, there are nitzitzis to Kedusha that are elevated in all of the various places where we travel, and each and every one of us is a part of that. It's not a mission, right? It's a nation. I'm sorry, it's not a nation, rather. It's a mission. They can't understand that. They can't fathom it. That all of these yichidim are bound together in something so much bigger than any one of them individually. And at any given moment, a person needs to really check in with themselves. Where am I klape the am? In other words, where am I klapi the mission? Is my Yiddishkeit mamish at the core of who I am? Is the deepest layer of my identity the Ummah, the nation, Am Yisrael? That I'm just a nitzitz of that whole enormous flickering, flaming torch that has a mission. And then I have my own individual circumstances, my own life. That's the birur that's being called into question. Because the light of Hasidus, which the Baal HaTanya was spreading in really heretofore unknown ways, in his clarity and in his depth, the light of Hasidus is a light of Geula, and it's a light of Atzmius. It's a light of identity. What are we? Who are we? What is Yiddishkeit to us? What does it mean? So famously, the Baal HaTanya was in interrogation in the Petersburg prison, in the jail. Can you imagine, like again, we tell the story like the Baal HaTanya, like tens of thousands of Hasidim. He's taken away, nobody knows what's going on with him, nobody travels with him, he's all alone. He was taken, they say, on like the Tsar's special black wagon for capital, punishment, like the most severe criminals in the world. And he's taken into interrogation. And the story is told that one time during the interrogation, the Baal HaTanya was asked to explain the passage in the Torah where after Chet Eitz Hadas, Adam and Chava run away, and they hear the Kol Mishalech Began, they hear the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu calling out to them saying, Ayeka, where are you? And the interrogator asked the Baal HaTanya, in sort of a mocking way, God is God and God doesn't know where Adam and Eve went. He has to ask them, where are you? What does this mean? And God is so limited. He can't find Adam and Chava in his own garden. He has to ask them, Ayeka. So the Baal HaTanya famously looked at him in the eyes, and he said the question of Ayeka wasn't about where Adam and Chava were physically, nor was the question asked to Adam and Chava alone. Said the Baal HaTanya, the question of Ayeka means, where are you vis-a-vis your mission on this planet? And it's a question that's asked perpetually to every single human being from beginning of time to the end of time, after each and every one of us in our own lives eats from the Eitz Hadas Tovara in our own experience. And the call comes down to each of us, Ayeka, where are you? And the prison guard, the warden, was so impressed by this. He had never heard such an interpretation, such a light, such a revelation. This is Hasidus. It means you can read the pasuk of Ayeka your whole life millions of times, and it's like some kind of history, historical anecdote of something that God said to Adam and Eve. Okay, you carry on, So that was for Adam and Chava. Says the Baal HaTanya, Ayeka is like, it's like a life, it's a lifestyle. Ayeka is a consciousness. We have to hear the word Ayeka every minute. Ayeka, Ayeka. You were created for something. Ayeka, where are you? Where are you? Heichan ani ba'olam. Like Rabbi Nachman has this lashon in Sipur Ma'asim. Where in the world am I? And the Baal HaTanya said later that conversation saved his life. Not because the interrogator was so impressed that he allowed the Baal HaTanya to leave eventually, but because the Baal HaTanya said that in that moment he was in a state of Klais HaNefesh. He was in a state of total spiritual ecstasy, And in Aliyah's neshama departure from the physical setting that he was stuck in, which was terribly frightening and difficult and challenging and dangerous, the Baal Tanya entered into a place of Klais HaNefesh. And he said that conversation and that Torah on Ayeka brought him back to this world. Because Ayeka isn't just for Adam and Chava that run away and hide in the Gan as a result of their chait. Ayeka even calls people back from Aliyah's Neshama in the other realms. Because Ayeka means, no. What do you mean? You're running to Eretz Yisrael. You're trying to get out of all the aspects of Chutz La'aretz. No. Ayeka means, hold on one second. Where are you now? Come back down here. Come back into Kalim. Come back into the regular, normal, mundane parameters, limitations, vessels of the human experience. That's the Ikar Avodah. Come back down. He called him down from Klais HaNefesh because he said, Ayeka. Hashem wants you. Hashem doesn't want, just Shechina Kedosha and total bittul and nullification into that. Hashem wants neshamas begufim. The Baal Tanya famously says HaKadosh Baruch Hu was boicher not in the neshama of Klai Yisrael, but in the guf of Klai Yisrael. Because on the level of neshama, there's no chilik. There's a long mimer, and it's a very complicated, nuanced theological Torah. But this is what the Baal Tanya says. You know what it means? God chose the Jewish people? The bodies He chose. The guf is different. Which means to say the way that we're able to interact with this realm of Chutz La'aretz, Gashmias, all the while that we're stuck here. Whether because we're actually stuck here, because we think we're stuck here, or because we pretend we're stuck here, or make ourselves stuck here, whatever it is. But today, and tomorrow, presumably, unless we have a flight that's booked, we're here now. So the question is Ayeka. And Mamela, the Rebbe Rashab asked his Hasidim who were able to actually enter into Petersburg prison, and they did the research to find out exactly which cell the Baal Tanya had been held in. And when they came back, the Rebbe Rashab asked, was there room for 3 people? And they asked him, what do you mean? And he said, because there's a tradition where the Baal Tanya came back, he said, that he had been visited by his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezrich, and the Maggid's Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov. So you and me would ordinarily assume that he had some kind of spiritual vision. And the Rebbe Rashab said, no. What do you mean a vision? There had to be room for 3 people in that cell. Because they were neshamas beguf. Because the whole Indian of Hasidus is not disembodied souls, it's neshamas beguf, and they came down into a guf. And the conversation that the Baal Tanya had with these tzaddikim, who came and told him that there was a tremendous kitrug, there's a tremendous satan in Shemayim as a result of this, that the Baal Tanya was revealing Pnimiyas HaTorah. This is why he had been held up in prison. It was that gzeira, it was that gzar din. So the Baal Tanya said, okay, listen, maybe Hashem doesn't want me to be doing this. If this is the result, and I end up in this matziv, maybe it's a siman min hashamayim that I should stop. And you know what they told him? Not only shouldn't you stop, you must deepen and intensify your activities. And when that day came, on the 53rd day, the Bechina of Gan, the Bechina of V'nar Yoytze Me'ed and Lahashkis as a Gan, that garden where Adam and Chava are running around trying to hide, that garden where Adam and Chava hear the call of Ayeka, the call of Ayeka that goes out to people who feel that they're so stuck in Gashmis that there's no hope for them, and the call of Ayeka to people who feel that they're so Baruchnius that they have no Inyan in this world anymore. V'nohar yoytze me'ed lahashkes as hagan. On that day, the Baal Tanya said the kitrug was broken, and now begins a brand new revelation in depth and length and breadth of the revelation of the Or Pnimiyas HaTorah, of the Or Agonos, of the Torah Da'atika Stima, of the hidden ancient Torah, the Torah Yichida, The Torah that speaks to the Yechidah Nefesh, to the part in which all of our individual souls kiss the totality of Knesset Yisrael. Where all of us feel identified with that mission. It's something the nations of the world can't understand. Sending money to Eretz Yisrael. What are you? Where do you belong? And the answer is nowhere and everywhere. The answer is that we're not a nation. We're a people on a mission. To find the Nitzaitzis to Kedusha. To reveal the R in the Kalim. To stand strong in every matziv of din, of gevura, of chutz la'aretz, of galus, and there to be able to find the R that's latent in that place. And this is what Yat Kislev is marking and celebrating, is this blowing open of all of the gates. So that not only is there no kitrug, but on the contrary, chevra who are involved in this pursuit not only of limud pnimius haTorah, but avoida b'pnimius. Not only v'yadata hayoim v'hashivoisa el levavecha, that we feel ourselves carried. We feel ourselves carried on eagle's wings. We feel that we are being lifted along by the Ruach Elikim Rachefes Al Pnei Hamayim, the Ruach de Mashiach. So I just want to read to you, and this we'll finish for now, one of the most remarkable passages that I've personally seen in any of the Hasidic Yisrael that I've been privileged enough to learn. And this is also from the Baal Yartzeit, from the Maggid Mizrich, and this is found at the very end of Parshas Kisisa. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Listen to these words. And it's almost like random. It's tucked away at the end of the piece. Listen to these words. V'ruach HaKodesh Gilu Lanu, says enigmatically, the Ruach HaKodesh revealed to us. I don't know who us is. I don't know what he means. V'ruach HaKodesh Gilu Lanu, divine inspiration has revealed that in Yezman, if there will come a time if there will come a time in the future, Sheyeh Cheshek Gadol L'Bnei Adam Leidas Hashem L'Davik Boi, where there will be a tremendous cheshek, a tremendous yearning, a response to that call of Ayeka, where people hear that and feel that, and get the sense that there's got to be more to life. There's got to be more to life. There's got to be more to being a year. Az yiratza hacheshek hazeh ka'olu k'kol hakavanos. Says the Maggid, just that yearning alone, even with nothing else, just that yearning will be compared to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like the carbon oila and all possible Kabbalistic intentions. Vizehu, and this is pshat in the pasuk, ki vi chashak, because they desired me. Va'afalteu. Va'az yeh ha'geula b'meher b'yameinu amen. This cheshek will free us. This cheshek will redeem us. This cheshek is the R upon which the geula relies. V'zeu imay anoichi b'tzara. This is what it means. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us b'tzara, in our constricted spaces, in the gevura, in the din, in the tsar. Afal pi shelo yedu shum kavana. Even if a Jew is so stuck in physicality that they don't know any R, they don't know any clarity, they don't know any moichin, any aspect of spiritual life. Rak sheyeh lehem tsar al zeh liyos lehem asaka. But they're going to feel the pain of wanting, the pain of yearning, the pain of chayfetz alev u'tshukas hanashama, the pain of yearning. V'yavid b'cheshek, and they'll do what they can to respond to that call of Ayaka with the yearning, with the desire. Says Hashem, that's all I need. That's all I need. I need for them to put in their best effort in the most authentic, vulnerable, real way. And then they will see everything. They'll see my salvation. They'll have everything. And then the whole world will be filled with the illumination of the clarity of the awareness of Hashem's universal presence. Everything as a result of cheshek. And this is what it means that we will be redeemed with joy. The joy of what Reb Tzadok refers to not as finding Hashem's presence, because it doesn't say Yismach Lev Moitzei Hashem, but the joy of searching vulnerably and honestly, deeply, for closeness with Hashem, captured in the words Yismach Lev Mevakshe Hashem, those who seek Hashem. This is, in my humble understanding, the essence of what the Baal Shem Tov wanted to bring back to Yiddishkeit. You can do all the mitzvahs, but do we yearn for the mitzvahs? We can be Jewish. We may even send funds to Eretz Yisrael, and some of us may even move and live there. But do we have the cheshek? Do we have that yearning, that longing? Do we feel called at the yechida shel nefesh, at the deepest essence of the root of our identity, to be a part of the Jewish story? Not simply to be whatever we think we are. We're British, or American, or South African, or Australian, or whatever we are, and also happen to be a Jew on top of that, but at the core of my identity, I don't even exist as an individual. I'm just a tiny nitzotz of that ultimate universal R that is unified with those who stood at Har Sinai, and that is just as unified with those who will greet Mashiach b'meir b'yameinu. That's the question. Hashem should bless us that this Yat Kislev should open the lights, should open the gates of the lights, the Shari Oira, of cheshek, of trying to listen and to hear, to listen deeply enough to hear that call of Vayeka, to help us realize that no matter where we are, whether we're in a time of Aliyah, whether a person's in a time of Yerida could be an hour, it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month. For some people it could be a year, it could be a decade. It could even be a few decades, Person's mom is stuck in a matzah. It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, that call of Ayaka goes out to say, whatever gashmius you think you're stuck in, there is art to be uncovered there. And if all you can do is yearn, then that's not just all you can do b'diavad. It's that yearning daika. It's those funds from chutz la'aretz that are going to fuel the flame of the Biaskayel Tzadik B'meir B'yameinu. Amen.
Yeah.